Okay, so welcome everyone. I hope everybody had a good week. I did, for a change.
Good.
So for those of you joining us for the first time, this is a session where we share ideas and success stories and for small businesses to present their challenges to the team, and hopefully we can give some good advice and maybe get a bit of inspiration. And all you need is one small little spark, and I think we've done our job. So as I mentioned last week, this is the last Coffee Chat Forum for the year. Everybody's going to be shutting down as of next week, so I couldn't get many more people. So I postponed the 2 extras. We'll do them in January. So today we're going to solve a business problem, or we're going to attempt to, for a company called Boardwell, or an application called Boardwell. We're going to go have a chat to the lady, and then we'll open it up for any sort of questions and answers, and then we'll sum up with what our final advice is based on the information that's been provided, and then we'll wrap up. So as I mentioned, today we're going to try and solve a business problem for an application called Boardwell. But I'm not going to say too much about Boardwell. I'll rather introduce you to the founding. I like the way that you put this, Riette. You called it a founding enabler on your IDP app bio. So Riette studied animal physiology at Northwest or Potts University and graduated with honors. She's the founding enabler for a company called IDP Apps, and Boardwell is one of those applications within that suite. And Boardwell started in about 2015, September, I believe, to focus upon edutech solutions, and currently it's got a few customers. So Boardwell is experiencing a few challenges, and Riette's going to share them with us today. But I'm going to let Riette tell you all about that. But the first thing I need to do is just stop staring the screen here. Right, now we can see everybody. And you're now front and center, Riette. So as I mentioned earlier on the week, Riette, if you can maybe just take us through what is the background to Boardwell, what's it all about? And then maybe tell us a little bit about yourself as well. And then we'll get into the questions.
Okay. So after I left varsity, I'll quickly introduce myself and tell you what I've been doing. I started working at Normal College in Pretoria. That's the old teachers' college. I think they closed down most of them. After that, I taught at a place of safety where they had children that was taken away from their families and kept in a safe environment. And then at Midrand High School, and then at a private school, Trinity House in Rand Park Ridge in Johannesburg. After that, I've decided, I've had enough of teaching. It's changed so much, and I love solving problems. That's one of my main things that I love to do. And we were presented with a challenge by St. Stilian's College in Johannesburg that they do not have anything available really in South Africa for boarding houses and how to manage boarding houses. So at that stage, we were looking into OutSystems, as was indicated on our slides. And OutSystems is a rapid application development platform. So we worked with the boarding house, looked at their problems that they presented, and we started developing Boardwell as a boarding house management system to try and solve, make paperwork less, in-app communication, so that there's not the need for WhatsApp groups or emails or messaging, that everything could happen in one place. Later in 2016, we were presented with a bit of problems around using OutSystems, because overnight they sort of became very, popular or well-known system, and they sort of tripled their price. So we couldn't afford that anymore, and we had to look for another platform to build our app in. So Steve, that's also joined us today, is our main developer, and he has then used another rapid application platform to redo or rewrite Boardwell at the end of 2016. We got St. Stilian's College then to use it. They were for a year the whole of 2017 our only school using it, helping us smooth out hiccups. There's 2 other companies in the world, or 2 other boarding systems that we're aware of. That is Boarding Ware and Reach, which are in the UK, and they were in Australia, and I'm not sure if they were sold but moved to America. So we since then, you know, tried to sort of sell to other schools. When we speak to schools, we've used various methods. We've attended, should I go on with this at this stage, Richard?
Yeah, no, sure, by all means, yeah.
Okay, good. So we sort of, you know, started looking at ways to get other schools involved and not just the one school. So we started phoning around, tried to do the cold calling thing. There's a South African boarding house association. It's run by the house director of boarding at Michael House. He allowed us to do, or to put up, you know, every 2 years, I think, at Michael House, there is a boarding house gathering, and schools join. There's roughly usually about 50 schools from over the country that, you know, goes to a specific venue and join in. We would take flyers and banners and do a presentation and everything. So the actual idea and the need for a boarding house system is much like, and the actual boarding masters and boarding staff like what they see, and they say that this could work for them, and they need it because it's a huge challenge to have paperwork at a boarding house. And when the next staff member comes on duty, they have to hand over between staff members. And so this guy keeps today's records for leave on his piece of paper, and the next guy coming on duty uses another book or another piece of paper. So they do not ever have the data together in one place. So that was the challenges that we tried to solve for them. And we did solve it successfully for the schools that are using it, definitely. Some of our big schools, St. Andrew's College in Grahamstown, Affie's, we have Rudine as a girls' school in Houghton in Johannesburg. What other big schools do we have, Steve? Affie's in Pretoria, but there was a challenge around linking everything together. And that is one of the things that we also see that presents a challenge is schools say they have a school management system, and they desperately need a boarding house system, but they don't really want to enter the data in more than one place. They want everything in one place, and they don't want the parents to have to go or to log in, you know, in more than one place, and teachers as well to input data, or if a child leaves or if another child joins, that they have to do it in one system. That's what they would essentially like to have. So we're definitely working towards a problem like that, or sorry, not a problem, a solution like that, to sort of solve school management in one place, so that communication can happen smoothly over boarding, sport, tours, COVID screening, because we have also, as soon as COVID happened, we started building a COVID screening part into our boarding house app, and the screening could be done whatever time of the day it was scheduled by the housemasters or directors. They could do a boarding screening of all their children. A back to school assessment can be done so that you have the information and the historical information of where children were, where they're coming from across borders, wherever, so that they could do that assessment and sort of, have it on hand, have the history. If there is a case, that they can track who was in the boarding house, who wasn't there, what exactly happened. And there is always, in all our apps, there is a date and time stamp on everything that happens. So your leave, your discipline, pastoral notes, everything that happens in the app is recorded and records are kept.
Okay. So then just to summarize, your target market is mainly just school boarding houses.
Yes.
Okay. And you're basically just selling them a web application so that ties in the house director, the staff, the boarders, and the parents. And I noticed in the state information that you sent me, you never mentioned anything about tying in the actual pupils themselves or students.
Yes, okay. So it is not just a web application, it's mobile as well. So it's on all the stores available, downloadable from Apple Store, Google Store. There are 3 users. So yeah, we have a learner login, a parent login, and a housemaster director login. Even the matrons from the kitchen can get meal information from the app. So we do a calculation as to if a child has applied for leave, it shows him as out of the boarding house over meal times, and the matron gets a register and a report showing her the children that's going to be there for meals so that they can prepare efficiently for all the children. And there's also allergies that she, can note in the actual app.
I'm going to come back to the... I'm going to come back to the learner stuff now. So I just want to summarize. So, okay, you've articulated who your target market is. You've articulated basically what you're selling. The problem that you're having is that there's too many applications for the school to manage. You haven't mentioned anything about how much you're selling it for. You said that you're not breaking even, you're not profitable, etc., because of the increase of the development platform. And then the last thing was you've reached out from a marketing perspective. You've been at a couple of conferences. You're using social media to target certain schools, asking for referrals, obviously testimonials from, say, St. Scythians and a few of the others. And then you want to expand into complementary or enabling products. And I see on that IDP apps, you've got quite a few other ConnectWell and a couple of others, Sportwell and TourWell, that are all linked into this platform. But I want to go right back to the beginning. So when you started this Boardwell, did you actually go and do marketing research in terms of who your competitors are? Because when you sent all the information, the first thing we did, we went and had a look and say, how many school management systems are actually out there? And I just found pages and pages and pages of them. Okay, I didn't go into detail as to what they offer inside their package, but that sort of jumped out at me. And the first thing when you mentioned in your slides that the schools were complaining about having to recapture information, information's captured in different databases and different applications, that there's no architecture inside the school in terms of having a single input console. So that's a major challenge. So when you did this, how much competition did you find that was actually out there? Or did you just focus on the boarding house?
So specifically for the boarding house, we focused on that. And there's only 2 other boarding systems in the world. And they're not, I know 1 or 2 schools in South Africa uses them, but they're quite expensive. And that is one of the big challenges we have as well. Schools love the product when we present it to them. They say it will definitely work for them, but funding is a problem. They would like to have it sponsored or use it basically for free. And obviously for us, that have to pay for services and servers and everything else and support behind it, we obviously need an income. So I would definitely love to make it available for all boarding schools because there is a huge need, yes. But we're challenged with the funding, basically.
Okay, sure. Okay, now Garth is itching to ask a whole lot of questions there. Garth?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, Riette, maybe, you know, as Richard said, the first thing certainly I did when I got your notes was I dived into the internet and had a look to see what, you know, what competitive systems there are and try to get a handle on what their costs are. I didn't dwell too much, but I've got a list of about 20 names of school management systems that was on the landing page, and it was about the fourth lot down. It was put together by, I think it's Capterra, and there was like Alma, Power Vista, Classes 365, Brightwheel, GradeLink. So you go. It's just like screeds of these systems. Have you, and okay, apart from St. Stithians offering you the opportunity, did you go in and apart from the 2 or 3 other boarding school apps that you identified, did you have a look at these in depth to see if there aren't any others that cover it off as a one-stop shop? In other words, include boarding as well. That's my first question.
We did definitely do our homework, and the answer is no. There might be, you know, a school management system that cover one aspect of the boarding side. Say they do registers, but it's not just registers that the boarding house, need, because a boarding house is a very, very different system from a school system, and it's managed completely differently. So I think there is one or two, like a product called Adam, and St. Stithians has just bought ISAMS. That's an international school management system because they did not want to go for one of the local school management systems, which is basically the D6 plus one. That is linked to the D6 communicator, which is a local one. It's the Kids of Family runs it from Stellenbosch. They've bought Pencilbox. Pencilbox is more, it's a school management system, but it is more like, you know, for your marks compilation and entering marks and calculation of weighting of marks, and also obviously having the children's details available. But definitely Pencilbox did not have anything for boarding houses. I used it myself. D6 Plus does not have a boarding function at all. That is the local one. I know there is a local one called SASPAC. We've made contact with the owner. Quite a few schools are using his school management system. And the problem that all the schools are still presented with, and specifically the government schools, using any of the other school management systems, they have to take it out of whatever system they're using and putting it back into SA SAMS. So there's also a lot of work involved in managing the information that they gather. Absentees, they have to enter into SA SAMS by hand, basically. There's not an automated way to do it. So even all the other school management systems that there are has got very, very limited ability to manage a boarding house. Not built in there, no.
So you therefore are in unique space with 1 or 2 global competitors. Just a question on that. Ever entered your mind to suss the UK-based option or the Australian option on an alliance platform between yourselves and them, and you become the agent with your package in South Africa? I'm just throwing food for thought out there.
Yeah, it is very difficult to reach out to any of them. We made contact with somebody of a local school management system, Engage, in South Africa, and they sort of, at one of these EduTech conferences, we spoke to them, and they're very, very defensive. So everybody is keeping what they have sort of, for themselves and to themselves, and they don't want anybody to take what they have or, whatever. I don't know. So it's a complicated situation in that sense, I know there's lots of school management systems out there, but definitely not boarding management systems. So we are attempting at this stage, and again through St. Stirians, to enter into the ISAMS market, and that's the International School Management System, to become one of their partners and see, if we put it out there and we can try through doing that, try and integrate the data from St. Stirians boarding house, and we've also done an online application form for them, because you also do not find online application forms for schools. Everything is still done on PDF and they email it back to the school. So we've got an online application. So I've spoken to ISAMS in the UK, and we're busy becoming a partner to make sure that we can integrate the data in the back end, and hopefully put another foot in the market out there.
I think that that is the sort of sense of alliance that I was referring to, and I just think that makes for good, in your marketing drive, you part of a global footprint or an international footprint or something, that works elsewhere in the world. Your positioning is pretty unique in South Africa, therefore. My next question, can I carry on asking, Rich?
Yeah, by all means, go ahead on.
Okay. Riette, forgive me. When you go to these schools like Michaelas and the rest of them, I would assume your core target is your private schools, okay? And let's focus on that for now, because those kids have got smartphones and access to internet, Wi-Fi, etc., etc. The audience you're dealing with to try and get your software marketed, generationally, give me an idea of who you're talking to. Are they over 40? Are they over 50? Are they over 60? The teaching staff, the boarding school managers, the principals.
I would say it starts from 40 to 60. It varies depending on, Yeah. So I know the boarding staff is very often young teachers that are also involved in sport. So they have the challenge with boys going to sport as well. So that's why we're trying to link a Sportwell in here. But the thing is, although they are the first point of contact, it is very difficult to get hold of them as the first point of contact, because we call a school, do cold call. We have to find out, okay, is the school willing to tell us whom their boarding staff is? Because a lot of schools do not have their boarding staff. You can see a picture, but you basically can't make contact with the person, get an email address or whatever. So if they're willing, they will give you the details for the boarding house or master, director, whomever. We make contact, we set up meetings with them, we do a demo, we have a trial period which they can use the app for to make sure that it's usable for them and it gives them what they need. And then after that, the next step will usually be, okay, so either the Parents Association or the headmaster would have to step in. Then there's another demo and another convincing of, okay, is this worthwhile for the school? Would it be good? Won't it be good? So I would say, it's a very wide age sort of gap that we work with. Start with the boarding masters, say in their 30s, and then up to your headmasters, which will usually be 40s, 50s, 60s.
Okay. Why I raised that is that your differential message across that generational spectrum, I would say you need to look at that carefully. I've just researched for 3 years in manufacturing. the digital capability across business leadership in this country. And I've hands-on visited some pretty astute corporates. And I'm scared because I'm going to use myself as an example. At my age and stage, the sooner these leaders can get rid of their digital challenges to younger generations and other people, the easier it is for them. And that is just so wrong. So the point I'm raising is, and Dana will certainly have the answers for you, but in your social media campaigns, I think your core target market, sorry, I shouldn't be pointing like a teacher here, should be your pupils. You know, you've got pupils at Affis, you've got pupils at St. Stithians, both top-end leaders, top-end schools in their various language sectors, that you can have references from the kids themselves, so that when you go in to talk to this, let's call it more generationally challenged leadership element at the schools, and believe me, they are challenged. I was on as an aside, a HSRC symposium yesterday where one of the senior professors was battling to get their Zoom to work, and it was all sorts of excuses, but you know, it's inexcusable when you're going out to a global platform. Okay, as an aside, coming back to where you are, those are just some of my cues as to possible approaches. I would use the kids, and I would use their references, and I would use their testimonials, and I would use their, if they're on Instagram or whatever they're using, TikTok or whatever, use it and take it to the headmasters and say, your kids want their lives planned from their device, not from a notice board that you go and put a piece of paper on to tell them they need to go to dinner at 7:30 and all that type of thing. You know, let me stop talking and sort of open it up to the others, but that would be something I would seriously look at. I've got more questions, but I'll come back later. I don't know if anyone wants to reflect on what I've shared.
I'll say that I do, like we did spoke, so it is part of the thing. So when you want also the kids to use it, you still need to, you know, give them motivation so they will want to use it. And part of how to make it is to get them part of the process. So if they can be in any way part of the process, and we did spoke about doing like TikToks and doing even TikTok like with their parents, but to do make sure that you limit it not to the dangerous part of it, because there are some teenagers taking it to the extreme with some of the challenges, and maybe even create a certain challenge, but a more educational, fun challenge that you can run as a viral campaign on it. And that's going to just run and maybe even come to, you know, other countries as well, because of that type of a message. So there's different ways to do, but that's also one approach. And I think for the principals or the people that there are the decision maker, there are different ways to reach out to, which is not necessarily the online. Okay, it can be even just like different campaigns of coming with certain facts and sending them by email. You know, just to, sorry, there's renovations, but just to come with certain messages that touch their pocket or touch the places where they feel that they've got a certain pain, and you come with this. So it can be even like, you know that you can save X amount of money. Would you like to save it? Everyone will want to say yes. And then you come and, you know, you tease them. Or like, do you know that like private school lose, for example, X amount of people like because of things like that? How many are you losing? Get them to think, and then you come with a solution, but I've got something for you.
Yeah, I've got a comment, but purely on a technical point. It's probably more aimed at Johar and Steve. From the conversation, the information that's been sent through and whatnot, how much emphasis have you put into making a single point, you know, single input console type of system? So, you know, the schools are complaining. I know we walk into school, and the person who does the most administration of the school is the lady who sits in the main admin building. She does most of the stuff, and she's normally not technically astute. And if she has to capture or help boarding school masters, and especially if it's a really big school, then there's multiple boarding schools. And then she's got to try and coordinate with the double capture of all this type of information, and then have paper reports going backwards and system between the systems. It's an absolute ball ache for them, excuse my language. And then they would shy away from anything where Why must I have to recapture the child's ID number and their birth date and where they have to travel to, the outside of the country, et cetera, et cetera? So how much work has actually been done to integrate by an API into the existing school management system to try and make it as simple as possible?
So sorry, we do also have the gardening service here, so I think there's quite a lot of background noise, but I can maybe answer you around that.
Yeah, sure.
So we did for Affys integrate with their Active Directory, so they could log in using their Active Directory username and password. So that wasn't a problem for us to do. Our issue is obviously we need to be given access to API documentation or an endpoint or something if we want to update data in another system, or we have to get some work done by the other party, the school management system party. So we have a bit of struggle with that. As we had mentioned, we're in the process of integrating with ISAMS. They're a pretty big school management system. I think they have 2,000 schools worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a good first step for us in terms of integrating with school management systems.
Yeah, because leading on from what Garth and Dana have said is that if you already have an interface that allows you to integrate backwards and forwards into any existing school management system, because those APIs should be pretty standard. It's a stock standard SQL database. The field names might change, but the actual data is exactly the same no matter where you are in the world. If that sort of functionality is built in, then it's very easy to overcome any objections, especially from the people who are going to manage the system, because those people will feed up to the headmaster or headmistress, and they are the last people that the headmaster, headmistress actually wants to upset, saying, I'm going to put an additional load onto my admin staff. The easier you make it for them, the easier it is to actually sell this thing. And also, it's easier for you to cost, because there's almost no back-end integration work for you to do if you've done it all up front.
Absolutely. We do also, for our current schools being relatively small, including schools on trial, I think we have 10. We are currently accepting data from schools in any format. If we have to do manual data capture, we do it. So
Mm-hmm.
we make the process of onboarding and managing Boardwell as easy as possible. So if they send us a PDF for each learner, we make a plan to get that imported. We do also handle all support. We do have some schools and some house directors who would rather send us an email asking us to update information rather than doing it themselves. And we at the moment still do all of that for them. So we try to be as accommodating as possible, knowing that we are still relatively small in our space. But I do agree with you 100%. And I think as soon as we have the integration with ISAMS up and running, that'll be something we can take to other school management systems and obviously leverage that to
So
try
last
point,
last comment on this point. The schools that you are working with at the moment, is there a common thread in terms of which school management system that they use? Which is the most popular in the country? Where I'm coming from is that Riette mentioned pencil box. I have no idea what are the most popular school management systems. But if you took system number ABC, for instance, and you asked them for an SDK kit free of charge, and you built your own API integration backwards and forwards into that system, that's another leaflet for you to say, listen, we already have integration into ABC, D, E, F, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. These are the most popular systems in the schools already in this country and across Africa and other parts of the world. Then you've already done 80% of the work, because you know how this works is in the Pareto principle. 80% of the schools will use 3 or 4 systems and the other 20% will use the rest.
I think there are 3. I think they're Engage, Adam, and SASBAC. I think those are the 3 big ones in South Africa that we've come across. We've had a bit of trouble communicating with Engage. They're very closed off to third parties from what we've seen. SASBAC, we had some good conversations with. They actually recommended us to NSA and Affys. That's how we got involved with those 2 schools, was through recommendations from SASBAC. And we haven't, as far as I know, really communicated with Adam much. But yeah, that's my feedback.
Okay.
So our actual dream would be to be like Uber of school management. is to have a one-stop shop where you can have your school management system, your boarding, your tours, your support from parents, parents' evenings, all of those things in one place. Because all different schools, if I can use St. Stephen's as an example, they have a boarding school system. They have just bought ISAMs, and it is taking 18 months to get them on board with ISAMs. We are doing their document portal, so that is another part that we're doing, where they store all their documents and communication that's linked into their website. We've just built an online application form for them. They have a different company from overseas that's providing them with a parents' evening app. So that is why schools are so thinly spread in terms of there is not a system that I'm aware of that caters for all of it. And the needs in South Africa differs a lot from what the, security-wise, specifically for our children, transport-wise. It is so different from some of the other countries in the world. So we're trying to, provide for South African children security as well within the apps that we have, making sure that they're safe, that their parents that's not with them are involved and knows at all times where their children are. So they basically have an insight into the boarding house, which they otherwise would not have, except if their child maybe has a level 3 or 4 offense and they're called in for a disciplinary hearing. So it's keeping contact between the boarding house and the parent as well.
Okay, that sort of raises other questions. It's almost a question to you in terms of, do you want to make a good living out of this, or do you want to be all things to all people? It's a very difficult decision to make. So if you want to make a living out of this and deliver a good service, then you're going to have to do the 80-20 thing. But if you want to be all things to all people, you're probably going to have to accept that you're going to spend a lot of money on development, and it's going to take a long, long time to recuperate that sort of investment. And if South Africa is really that unique to other schools around the world, you probably won't recuperate that sort of investment. Then you're going to be doing once-off projects for a Pacific school. St. Stephen's is a very large school, and they offer a lot of activities to the kids, which a lot of other schools in that bracket even don't. Dana, you got a comment?
No, sorry, there's a lot of background noise, so I'll
No problem. Garth?
Riette, a question on your listening to your services and your offer, and concurring with what Richard has just said. There seems to be a lot that you're doing outside of your, let's call it, core offer. A lot of added value service that I'm hearing, capturing data, extra work that you're offering the school. Is this being recorded in your cost structure, or are you just accepting these projects and doing them for the goodwill of saving the business? Because surely your board member, your school governing body, financial person should understand that, for any added service, there's a cost attached to it. So it's just a question: are you charging for these added value services in your cost structure?
Yeah, so we just have a setup fee, so that is paid once upfront, and then they basically pay on a sliding scale according to how many learners or boarders are in their boarding house. A monthly fee for all 12 months of the year, but other than that, no, we don't charge extra for serious extra support, because we're trying at this stage to have a two-way advantage for if a school is saying to us, listen, can you tweak the discipline or this a little bit for us to help us handle our challenges, because we do have small schools like in the Eastern Cape. There's a small school, very poor school, but they using the system because they find value in it. So we have tweaked discipline stuff specifically for them and specifically calculations in the background to make it easier for them, using our skills and assisting them with a skill that they will not otherwise have. They will have to go and sit and by hand calculate all of these discipline issues with formula, and then when a child reaches a certain level, they will have to do it by hand, adding up how many discipline issues there were, when are they going to give this type of punishment, when are they calling the parents in, when is it the disciplinary hearing. So we do offer, I know not the best way, but we're trying to create a huge value in the product so that we can also rely on by word of mouth. If another school asks, that they actually can indicate that they do get a lot of value out of the system. Long story to get to that, yeah, but
no, it's fine. Just on that, so you're looking at it as a one-off charge that encompasses all those activities. You've got 10 schools in your mix. Your 3-year financial projection, have you looked at that and said, okay, when do we reach break even? On our cost structure, when do we reach break even? How many schools? And then the second thing is that what does the 3-year plan look like? As Richard mentioned, do you want to make a good living out of this, or do you want to have it as a hobby and interest, or where do you need to go? And I'm sure you've done that work. I'm just asking for my own confirmation.
I would hope that I would be able to make a living from this. Because of the fact that I come from a teaching background, that's what I have been involved with. And going digital, I mean, this is the next revolution going on, everything digital, whatever. So do not try and take the chance, because we have taken away from 2 schools that was using the overseas school, Boardwell. We've taken 2 of these schools away, and they have started using our system now. So, yes, we're in the process calculating that. I would, at this stage, say, depending on the size of the schools, because you have to take that into account as well when you try and calculate income and the budget going forward. But I think about 20 schools we will be sort of at break even at this stage.
Okay.
I want to say something quickly before they drill again. So I'll just give an idea on how you can actually find a way. And that's why I ask about if there is a parents organization or something. Because for example, when I've done a project on how to reach out to schools, I figured out that the right way was to get the confirmation, like to get the agreement of the government side. Okay, so we reach out to the government, to the Minister of Health, of Education. And from there, we got the approval to go to with them, basically to the municipalities. And from them, once they give us the approval, all the schools open their door quickly. So if you can find, and like Richard says here, like maybe a certain group or something that, that can collect someone, that once you get their approval, they're gonna open you the door. So that's the direction I'll go. That's the tactic I will use to try to reach out, while you can still run campaigns on increasing awareness through the kids. So I will go in both angles.
Yeah, I think just a comment on that, Riette. What Garth has mentioned, you're doing a lot of one-off stuff with St. on a basic sliding scale for recuperating costs. Have you thought about going to a consortium of schools, like go to Currow, Redham, Rodine, St. John's, St. Albans, St. Stithians, etc., and say, listen, this is what we are doing. would you guys agree to form a committee or a JV or something like that where they put development funds in and you write a module for those schools? So, because what I see happening here is a typical SAP type of implementation. You have a stock standard piece of software that has all the world's best processes embedded in it. And then it goes to an individual company and then they bastardize the system, and then the consultants make a hell of a lot of money twisting the system to suit the company. You could do the same sort of thing for the schools, where you could have this and this and this, a world-class boarding school system that integrates with a school management system. And by the way, we're busy writing a school management system that had all these features that is South Africa Pacific, but we need a group, almost like a crowdfunding type of model, and everybody buys in. Because if you've got those top schools that I've just mentioned, those are just in Pretoria and Johannesburg, and you can reach out, Brescia House, and quite a few others. They all have boarding schools. They all need this type of help. And you target the people who are running those schools to get the development funds. And then you talk to the people underneath, the headmaster, the administration people, the housemasters, etc., in terms of the specifics for the specification for what they want. And there'll probably be a lot of commonality amongst a lot. Once you've got that, the government thing is a great idea, but I think that's going to take a really, really long time. There's just too many political minefields there, unless you really got deep pockets.
I think that's also part of building a plan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you can do a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding type of model, either government or with the independent schools. And I mean, what I meant by deep pockets is not necessarily bribes, but it's going to take a lot of time with bureaucratic processes, and typical government, there's just red tape upon red tape because they've got to cover their backsides on everything, because it's it's the society's kids that they're looking after. So, but maybe the independent schools are probably the better way to go, because your things will move a bit faster and you might get a bigger pool of money. And then once it's written, then you've got all these license fees that you can collect. Then you can go to St. Andrews, Kingswood, Victoria Girls, etc. in Grahamstown. There's plenty in PE, plenty in Cape Town, Bloemfontein, Durban, everywhere else. Suddenly you look at 100 schools, now it starts becoming really viable.
And I think that's what you guys need to think about. So, when in corporates, when you try to see how you're going to have a return of investment, you really make a plan and thinking, okay, what are the angles that I can attack it, and what I can gain from each and every one, and put like a goal to each and every one of them. And there's different ways to reach out, and that's the nice thing. You can do more than one thing on the same time, because you can say, I'll start, for example, something with the government, which I know will take me a long time, but that's something that I'm going to start running. But on the same time, I'm going to do A and B. So that will give me some faster results. So it is to find some groups that you can maybe collaborate, and they will open you the door. It's just to find those few people. And because once you get a certain approval or getting into something, it's going to be easy. It's going to spread very quickly. And then when you use the testimonials, it's going to help, because it's a competition. Okay, everyone is a competition. They want to be the best. They want to show that they've got something. They want to save the money. They want to look good in front of the parents, in front of the kids, and that's part of it. So it's just to get it started, to get it very like a flame, and that's it. It's just going to come to you.
And you can also use that to your advantage. Can you? I mean, if you lived in Johannesburg, do you have any idea the level of competition between St. John's and St. Stithians? They're at each other's throats all the time. The same with Rodine and Brescia House, So they won't want somebody else to get an edge over them. But you can manipulate that to your advantage. So I think we need to start wrapping up now. But I think if I could summarize the whole thing, I think technically you guys are on the right track. I think business plan wise, I haven't seen any comprehensive plan at a high level in terms of how you want to attack this market. And maybe you need to narrow that down and say, my market is high-end private schools, and start there. Then what is the business plan to do that now? I need money. All right, let me go to these private schools as a group. So there is a group called the independent schools. They write the same matric exam every year. So there's already a governing body. Target them. See if you can get into maybe Currow, either through Van der Spey or through Garth. and have a chat to them. There's probably 50, 100 schools in Currow. If you get in there, then you've got a base, and also you'll get a much better product once you finish developing it. And then from there expand, but narrow right down and say your target market is possibly private schools, high-end private schools in South Africa, and then from there branch out. Because I think doing the one-source, it's frustrating, it's slow, you're not getting the money that you want, and you start banging your head against the walls in terms of, am I marketing right, am I doing the right message, etc. Excuse me for saying this, but this is a classic small business mistake. Technically, really, really good. From a business expertise perspective, there's something missing. And that let me start with who you're selling to and what are you selling. So that's my comments. Garth, Dana, I don't know what your comments are.
I think if I can jump in, Dana, the positioning is very unique from what I've heard. Your service, your added value service is excellent. Just make sure those costs are recovered, the more extras you take on. What Richard has said, Currow has got one VDS, I don't know the Christian name, but there's a Currow link right down there in Durbanville that you can go and talk to right away. I had coffee with a Currow headmaster who's just retired. He's gone into the digitization of teaching principles within the Currow group. So there are these one-stop individuals within these groups, Educor, Currow, the Trinity College group that you've been involved in. Where I lived in Joburg, Midstream Estate, they had a Trinity College new school that came up just outside the estate. And so we go. So there's a one-stop, there's a person at each of these head office functions that could be your one-stop to reach 10 or 20 schools. So your marketing costs could be reduced. And I would encourage, as Dana said, set up competitions on your app for these kids to, I don't know, win something. I don't know, a kit bag, a hamper, chocolates or something, and invoke excitement. The channels that come to mind, I guess your Facebook, your LinkedIn's for, reaching the decision makers, and TikTok and the rest of it that appeals to the kids. So use it bottom up, top down. That would be my pound of flesh. And good luck there. I really think you guys are on a very unique. It's well positioned. It's brilliant. You've got references. Lever those references, and then if you can encourage the kids to participate, you've got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But that's me.
I don't know if anybody can read Dana's message there. Yeah, no, I understand there's noise behind you there. So I'll just read the message. So Dana's saying, define your... No, go for it, Dana. Okay, I'll read it out. Define your target market.
Or is it...
Go ahead, Dana.
Can you hear me well, or is it too much in the background?
No, it's fine.
So I'm just saying, really try to focus on who you're targeting, who are the people, and then you're going to find the ways also to define and be with a very clear message, okay? What are you trying to take from your business? And that's going to be you reaching out to their pain points, right? What they feeling they're frustrated about, what they struggle about, and that's where you come with your message. Once you have this, you can build a proper plan that's going to help you to see how you can get quick wins, like a return of investments, but you're going to do it with the tactics. And it means that you can come to that target market from different ways. So you can approach them from different angles. And one of the angles can be from the kids, because we know that they also have the power to impact. And they're the one that also you need to use the app. So it is part of it. So that's how you're going to find it. But you need to be very clear with what you're trying to say. What from the app you want to highlight? What is exactly going to come out to them out of it? Why to use it? And by knowing that and knowing your target, that's easy. You're just reaching out to the people. If you know where to touch, they're yours. Yeah. Even if it's a process to take, but especially now with all the competition between schools and now everyone not in a good place with the money, and parents want to know that if I'm already working my ass off, sorry for my language, but to put my kid in a good school, in a good boarding school, I want to know that I'm paying and I'm getting what I'm paying for. And people are more aware now for their expenses. Even if they didn't suffer during COVID, they're way more aware. And for those who've saved so much money for schools, they want to invest in these things. They want to do something. And that's your opportunity to come and bring it from a different angle and touch that point.
Yeah, I think on a final point on that, what Dana just mentioned there as well is that parents who send their kids to boarding school struggle with the fact that they lose touch with their kids. They're not involved in their daily lives. They don't know what's going on. So an angle that you could leverage as well is also, this is a mechanism for the kids to stay in touch and saying, okay, I can see what their schedule is. They got rowing now, then they're doing this, and then they've got their study period, and then they've got dinner, etc., etc. You're getting feedback from the teachers all the time and from the headmaster, so that they know what's happening with their child. So that's my final point. Riette, I don't know if this helped you at all. I see you here every now and then. Stefan is sticking his head in there and saying something. So Stefan, you got anything to comment? A thumbs up. Okay. Okay, so I hope that helped you and provided a little bit of direction. I think Garth and Dana is right. You need to just maybe refocus on exactly who you're selling to and have that business plan in place to say, how am I going to get the resources that I need to overcome the challenges that I'm facing? And it could be that crowdsourcing type of model. It could be, hitting a group of people instead of going for an individual. But it's food for thought. So there are plenty of us here on the call who have access into those type of schools, and also who can help you with maybe just refining a point or two on your business plan. So I hope this helped.
It did help a lot. Thank you so much for everybody.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now. So as before, I record these calls and I will edit them and send them out over the weekend. And I will put in all the contact details of the people that are on the call. This is the last one for the year. And we'll probably start up again third week in January. But I'll let everybody know. But other than that, I hope you guys have a good Christmas and a good break. Heaven knows we need it after what we've just been through this year. And hopefully that these vaccines can control this thing going forward. Okay, that's all from my side. Guys, thank you and cheers. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
And to you all.
Bye.